Thank you for joining, Dustin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. This is such a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely excited to have you on and to dive back into my old memories about running a growing production company. Definitely have a affinity in my heart for what you're doing. So I'm excited to hear your story.
I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to dig in. I've been a big fan of the podcast, and it's very helpful for creative entrepreneurs like myself. I think there's a lot that we can call from all of these episodes. So thank you for doing it.
Totally. Yeah, definitely. And so I always like to start off just kind of learning about your backstory and what got you to where you are today. I saw on your resume, it looks like did you go to school in Australia for a while?
Yeah, I did a film abroad program in Australia. I went to UMass Amherst, and there wasn't much of a film program there. It certainly wasn't a film school, but I knew that I was heading in this direction. So I sought out this program at the National Australian Film School. And basically, you go there, you work on all the graduate projects as like a PA. Sometimes you get to grip assist, or you kind of work your way around to the different departments. But yeah, that was like production boot camp for me. I hadn't really been on anything bigger than, a couple people in a camera, and going into a full fledged set, and was a really cool experience. And the projects themselves were, extremely creative. That they had a full sound stage. They also had, individual sets that were already pre-built. You had like a set for a house, or you had like a set for a school, or a set for, a police station. They had, it's really kind of profound what they're able to do through the national government in Australia, and the list of graduates is staggering. I mean, it's everyone you think, right? It's like Baz Luhrmann, Russell Crowe, Hugh Jackman.
Really?
They've all gone there. Yeah, the producer that I worked closest to was a professor there as well, and they had the actual hood of the car from Mad Max mounted
Wow.
over their desk. Was
Nice.
it was pretty cool. But it's yeah, for anyone who, especially anybody who comes from Australia, they'll know the National Australian Film School. They call it afters.
Nice. What city was that in?
I was in Sydney.
Sydney. I love Sydney. Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. And
Nice.
kind of served two purposes for me, because I was just learning how to surf at the time, and I thought I could kind of scratch two itches, go
Yeah.
and learn filmmaking, and also do a fair amount of surfing while I was there.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw you're big into surfing, which I'm sure we'll get into that. But sticking on the filmmaking, so it sounds like from a young age, you knew you were going to get into filmmaking, and I saw that you've really had like a rounded career. I mean, you've bounced around, you've done freelance, you've worked in TV, you've worked on the agency side. But fast forward a little bit, and would love to hear, after those experiences at all those different, places that you went throughout your career, what inspired you to start Vagrants, and what was the founding story there?
Yeah. I always say, like, I wouldn't have started Vagrants if I hadn't had such varied experiences to get to this point. A lot of people are sort of those sort of, born entrepreneurs. They come right out of college, they start their own production company, they get into it. That was sort of the furthest thing on my mind when I got out of school. But it was through, as a teacher for a minute, and then, I ran a community TV station as a part of that. That's where I really learned how to build teams and manage teams. And I was the sort of classic DSLR filmmaker, right? Like, get on a plane with a Pelican case and go shoot mini doc stories about, patient testimonials, and, all sorts of different things, mainly in the healthcare world. Um, so I did that, and then I also kind of worked in the TV end. I was an editor on a cooking show, so I took all these like little pieces from what I had learned, and it kind of built my overall skill set and comprehension of how things get made, and how the industry works. And I think coming out of that, I always knew I wanted to run a team and build a team. I just sort of had that innately in me. And when I worked at the ad agency, I worked at Sapient. At the time it was Sapient. Now it's Razorfish. Um, I was building that. I was building a team within an agency, and as a lot of folks have, and you start to scratch that itch a little bit more, and it's just something that you want to keep doing more and more of, and I think that's partially where Vagrant started for me, was the ability to build my own thing and build my own team. But at the same time, there's also, you're balancing that aspiration with your sort of more individual, creative aspirations of becoming a director and doing, more, bigger and better projects, creatively and growing in a specific direction. So it was a sort of balancing act of those two things, the sort of individual aspirations and the sort of like, more collaborative, collective aspirations.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And take me back to when you started Vagrants. I mean, it's always a exciting but scary time, jumping out of the salaried position and starting up a new company. Like, what made you say, let's go for it? And how were those early days? Like, how did you land your first client? How did you meet? How did you build your team? What did that look like?
The leap of faith. I find myself talking to people who are considering the same thing all the time, and it's always that leap of faith that's the hardest thing to do. Once you take the leap, you're never looking back, right? But at the time, the agency was an interesting spot. Publicis had purchased um, uh, Sapient, and they were sort of smashing agencies together, and it was kind of uncertain of where production was going to live in the overall ecosystem. So that was a factor. At the same time, I'd gotten some opportunities to direct within the agency. Specifically, we had a really big Dunkin' Donuts campaign, which is, big client when you're in Boston. And I had edited
Yeah.
a lot of Dunkin' Donuts work, and um, you know, thanks to the creative team I worked with at the agency, they put a ton of trust and faith into me. And I directed a local spot here that was a partnership with the NHL. So there's a local Boston Bruins player, in the spot. So that was a big spot to go from directing smaller, more product centric kind of things, so doing a full fledged shoot with an NHL athlete, So I had that under me, and I said, I want to do more of this. How do I do it? And I explored opportunities to do it through the agency, but it just seemed like if it was going to happen, I was going to have to bootstrap it myself. And I think at the same time, there's that sort of happy madness of the folks you meet along the journey and being in the right place at the right time. And I met my partner Winston McDonald through that, and Winston was in a very similar space, but opposite. He had come from the freelance direction. He had always been, more of a DP, and he was the sort of guy with a camera in a van that would come and shoot amazing cinematic stuff, pretty bootstrapped. But he was looking to get into directing. He was getting more and more of those bigger opportunities as well. So it was a sort of combo of he and I kind of both being in the same place that said, well, if I can do this, I will need a partner, and I'll need somebody to lean on. I'll need some help. And I didn't, at the time, you're naive, right? You don't know what you need, but the fact
Yeah.
that you have somebody else in it with you gives you all the confidence to move forward. Um,
You need as many people as possible
yeah,
at the end
yeah.
of the day. As many people that will help you as possible. The more, the better.
Yep, totally. And that I look back on those first few years, and it was crazy. And there's absolutely no way we would have been able to do it without the support we had around us. At the time, we had a really great producer that really um, dove right in, put us on his shoulders. Really sort of led the way for us. And then we had the local crew really rallied behind us. Our office was at Red Sky Studios here in Boston, and Red Sky does most of the film work that comes into Boston is usually based out of Red Sky, and the gaffer there, Franz Wetterings, was, doing huge, $1 million, let me back that up. Uh, I should name some specific movies that he was working on. He was doing, everything from Shutter Island, to the Ted films that we're shooting in Boston. And to get him to gaff, a vacuum commercial that we were doing, like that was pretty huge. And I think
Yeah.
about those folks along the way. They really put a lot of trust and faith into us, and gave us a lot of favors, and we built Vagrants on the backs of those folks.
Nice. Nice. And I saw that you also have an original content side in that your roster has produced a number of films. How do you balance that? Like how do you decide what to greenlight internally? How do you fund them? How do you allocate time and resources? What does that process look like?
Yeah, that's something that we are really in the early days of. We've brought the name Vagrants is very purposeful. We wanted Vagrants to be a collective. We wanted the brand to represent a community of creative folks and not just myself and Winston. So in doing so, we've brought friends sort of into the fold, and Dan Kennedy is our head of production for Vagrants Originals. He's always been one foot as a commercial DP and the other as a director and producer of indie film projects. And we basically just started giving our resources to these productions and using it as a way that we can, build the film community here locally in the Boston and kind of New England area, as well as attract some talent that otherwise wouldn't have, be working with a company of our size and scale, if there wasn't some additional incentive, right? If we're not in development on a script with them or something like that. So it kind of, it services the sort of greater Vagrants purpose, which is to be producing high end commercial work. But the film projects sort of keep the passion bucket filled, and allow us to meet folks and collaborate with folks in a way that we never would if we were just doing commercials.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I remember back when I ran a production company shooting commercials, we always wanted to do these fun projects, narrative, scripted type stuff. But I mean, you just have this like avalanche of other concerns, right? You have your clients and you have your sales and marketing and operations and all these different things. And it's like, can be such a challenge. And I was just going through your website and I'm seeing all these posters for films that you all have done. And I'm always just curious, how growing companies like yours manage to find the time for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the time is the hardest part. Behind me, there's a couple of those posters. There's Made Back East was the first original film that we had done, and the idea for that was really kind of came out of more of a commercial spec. We wanted to produce something on our own that showcased our abilities to shoot outdoor docu-style films. At the time, like Yeti was making a name for themselves in that area. We idolized, Farm League and Sherpas and Camp 4 Collective. And, we wanted to be that in the East. How do we do that in New England? So we wanted to tell a sort of what we called a natively New England story, which is the idea of, backcountry skiing, but as it is in New England, it's a little harder to do. The conditions don't line up the way you'd want them to, and it's a little bit more of a struggle. But it's the sort of silver lining of taking what nature gives you and making the best of it. And the idea of that was making that story branded. We worked with a local ski company, Parlor Skis, and made it very much a brand centric docu story. And the idea was to attract other brands to, see the filmmaking space as a viable way to, spend their marketing budgets, and as other companies have done. And we still very much believe in that, and that's at the sort of core focus of Vagrants Originals, is finding that space where brands and original content live together. And it's something that I listened to your podcast with Step Studios, and that's exactly the space that they're blazing a trail into, and so many production companies have.
Mm.
And we firmly believe in the sort of rising tides raise all ships. The more people in the production community that are pushing brands in that direction and producing great work, and the more eyeballs that work gets, the more likely we are to be making things that we're all passionate about. so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's the idea for Vagrants Originals.
Got it. And for a project like that, I mean, are you seeking a client that funds it entirely? Are you all, putting in your own dollars or resources? What does that look like?
Yeah, the first one we kind of co-funded along with Parlor Skis. We kind of split the bill, and we took a couple weeks off to do it, and it had to be around weather windows, so that was challenging. Other times we have kind of sort of gained funding along the development route, and maybe we've shot some things, and then we're putting together sizzles and then putting that in front of brand support. But anybody who's in doing this kind of thing, will tell you you're kidding yourself if you're not going to have to reach into your pocket, at least at the beginning, to get something off the ground. It takes an investment. And that's what we've learned through the process, is that, by us really sort of stomaching, the first sort of phase of development, and maybe that bleeds into production. That's the only way something's going to get made.
Yeah,
In general, it's just hard for people to put any kind of funding, faith behind something that they don't understand.
definitely.
And I think the
Definitely.
further you get into the development process, the more folks will understand.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Speaking of process, big part of this show, love to really dive in, learn about how you all do things internally, and just share learnings with our audience. First question, I know that you are a director, but also co-founder, obviously. I'm curious, like, how you split your time. Like,
Mm.
how much do you get to focus solely on creative versus do you have your hand in producing, operations, recruiting, sales, all these different things? What does your day-to-day look like in that regard?
It's funny. I've never thought about the split because I feel like I'm just doing it all concurrently. I feel like I'm never getting any purely focused time unless I'm on set, probably. Um,
Sure.
but given that, I think I'm probably more in like the 70-30, like 70% I am doing all of the business, stuff, and that involves producing, and that involves creative directing, that involves marketing, that involves sales, involves all that stuff. And probably 30% of the time I'm getting to do my own sort of directorial things. But for me, the projects that I'm directing, they're very tied to a lot of the business. A lot of the times they're with clients that we've worked with before, existing relationships that we have, or sometimes it's I'm directing something that's more of a prospect kind of project, that if we do this one, then maybe we can start to break into this avenue of work a bit more. So I never really truly feel like the directing work is separate from the entrepreneurial and even like EP type sort of responsibilities.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. It's the dream someday, 100% directing, right?
Every now and then I have had to do a couple things. I've gotten to do some things where I'm sort of like a director for hire, which has been
Nice.
it's fun, but it's extremely challenging for me to do. It's very hard for me to sort of take my finger off of the pulse of the production company business. It's
Right.
just so ingrained in me at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of process, would love to hear a little bit more about your process whether that's as a producer, director, whatever that may be, but anything you've learned along the way that you can share with everybody about how you produce content.
Yeah. Um, I thought it might make the most sense to share a bit from a recent project we did with Rhode Island Tourism Board. Um, it was producing a tourism piece. It was like a lot of the tourism work that we do. It's a big sort of spider web of factors, and you have to cover a lot of ground. You have to shoot a lot of locations. You have to shoot a lot of things to create this sort of anthemic piece about the sort of fabric of that state. In this case, the smallest state, Rhode Island. Um, I developed this thing a long time ago. Really in the early days of Vagrants. I don't think this is a novel to any filmmaker out there. It's a Google spreadsheet, but it's stood the test of time with us because it really is the sort of fusion between directing as well as assistant directing, right? Create logistics, a schedule, everything like that, production, and your cinematography, right? Your DP. It's really the place where everybody um, you know, can go from this one document and branch out to do all your individual tasks. So it starts for me with this tab. This is usually the first thing I start to build out. And this is me kind of planning out in my head in the edit, the sort of perfect 30-second spot. And a lot of times with tourism work, things aren't so scripted. You're shooting sort of scenes and vignettes, but you're not exactly sure how things are going to connect. I always try to bring more structure to those, and this is sort of my effort to do so, which is like I line up sort of all of my locations, and I color code them, and I kind of group them into locality, right, as to where we would shoot them. And then here I've gotten some time codes. I've kind of broken it down into, all right, I got 30 seconds to shoot all this stuff. How does it work into a 30-second spot? And I start to plan out shots that I've kind of already indicated in my treatment. There are shots that I would love to get at these specific locations. I start to order them. I start to think about the transitions between the two. I start to think about how from a camera approach wise, how you would shoot them. And I think about talent too. Which talent would we have in individual scenes? And so this is the sort of like paper edit version of how the spot would come out. And then we start to break that into units. In this case, we had 2 units. We had sort of your A unit, which had talent, and then you had your B unit that was more of like a B-roll capture kind of unit. And I break out, sort of further, by location, what are some other shots that we want in this area? What's our coverage looking like? What's a drone shot? Kind of marking some shots that might need to be a second unit shot and not a first unit shot. So this kind of puts like the matrix of shots together by location, not by, time code of the final spot. And then my AD jumps in. We'll usually have like a template of a schedule built out, but he takes, literally copy and paste. He takes those shots, he starts grouping them together. We start looking at, the time of day, and how everything's going to match up. In our case, we did have 2 units, and we had to really kind of have almost 2 columns of what A unit was going to be shooting versus what B unit was going to be shooting, and spatially. Luckily, Rhode Island is a small-ish state, but it's kind of deceiving. If you're shooting on one side, it might take you 3.5 hours to get over to the other, which I know relatively folks from big states, that's not a big thing, but for here in New England, it is. So we really had to be mindful of travel times and just crew and resources where they're being dedicated. But yeah, this starts to show out how each day is broken up, and this becomes the schedule that goes along with the call sheet. And we're always tweaking this for this particular shoot. We were responding to weather. We were responding to location logistics, time of day. So, we were changing these schedules like up until the night before, we'd go to shoot something. And I know that there's a lot of software out there for scheduling and planning and things like that. I've always just found that this format is the most flexible, and it's also the most collaborative. And it really does allow everybody in the production workspace to contribute.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to see this. So it's like a shot list, shoot schedule, everything rolled up into one in just one place where your whole team collaborates together, essentially.
Exactly. Yep. And I think the other thing too that maybe I've left out is this is really helpful for the editor to see. I think editors are, especially us, we really try to keep post production in the forefront of production planning. That's kind of a differentiator for us. We are a very post forward production shop. So being able to look at something like this where it is sort of sequential shots, and talking about transitions and talking about little elements that you might need to capture in order to make the edit work, really helps you in the production day prioritize what shots that you want to get, and just leaves the editor feeling more clear and competent going into an edit.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is kind of like the Bible that takes you from pre all the way through post that you work off
Exactly.
of the entire way.
Yep.
Nice.
Exactly.
And segueing from that, one topic I wanted to chat quickly about, I saw on your website that you had partnered with Pennant Video, which is actually a customer of ours for Assemble. So recognize them. I'm curious. It's unique to hear of two production companies partnering. I know that they're also a marketing agency, but they're really like video first. So curious, like how that works, and if you see that being kind of the future, like specializing in different parts of the funnel and really focusing in terms of what you do as a production company.
Yeah, Pennant came, very organically for us. Tim Bradley, the founder and EP, is a good friend of mine, and we had always been sort of in parallel paths with one another. As I was starting Vagrants, he was running a video production team at a larger PR and marketing firm, and he sort of built a company similar to what I had done at the agency. He had built a company within a company. And so he'd already had that experience. His mind already worked. He already had an entrepreneurial mind. And I really just had to tell him that, you're already doing it. Just if you take that leap of faith, something that we talked about at the beginning, you're never going to look back. This is who you are and this is what you do. And so it really helped to have a partner that had a clear vision for what this company was going to be, which is a categorically different company than Vagrants, where Vagrants is focused on, top of the funnel, awareness based, marketing and advertising, real high level brand stuff. We would always find ourselves being approached about doing more mid funnel type sort of work, and there really is no way to do those things. Anybody who runs a production company will tell you is you can't undercut yourself. And as much as we saw the potential in projects like that to be really great projects, and we really like them as a way that we could build our team, build junior folks, and get them the opportunities on a smaller scale level, budgetarily, but to make things that could build their portfolio and build their reel to get that larger scale project. So that was the sort of idea from the Vagrants end, and then Tim kind of came at us with this really sort of fully baked business plan of this is the kind of video work that I do. These are the client. This is the clientele I'm going after. This is what I know is in demand in the industry, and that I'll admit ignorance. I think part of what I've always tried to do as a business owner is just surround myself with people that are smarter than me, that have a different angle and have a different direction. And Tim was that, and I really kind of became a believer, and I started to see the potential in how the industry may evolve. And There's something that a creative director told me very early in my career. Shout out Matt Lindley, who was my ECD at Sapient. He always said that broadcast TV is never dead; it's just having babies. And I truly believe that is true about you could look at that at any aspect of the industry, is that no form of media really truly dies out. It might morph, it might change, it might have babies, right? It might sort of spawn other things, other forms, but it never truly dies. And I think as our industry changes and as the sort of media landscape changes, the more that we as an organization can diversify ourselves in different skill sets and different needs and different demands, the better off we're going to be. And there's kind of I think the more prevalent approach is to maybe take all of that stuff in house and build different teams that focus on different things, and then you start to look more like an agency and more like a larger sort of marketing organization. For us, it's about building more specialized niche companies that are focused on separate things, right? So Pennant is now a part of that, where it has its focus in sort of mid funnel marketing content. Vagrants is obviously focused on the top funnel content, the sort of broadcast and high level social, paid media stuff. And Vagrants Originals focused on that space between where brands and narrative and documentary filmmaking meet, and breaking those off and having those specialized companies kind of creates a family who can work together and can pool resources and can lean on one another to for their existence, but can also blaze their own path and do their own thing. And that's the idea.
Yeah. I think that's really smart. I mean, it helps you really crystallize your story, as well as tell a client when they're just not a good fit, right, for you, for what you do,
Yeah.
which I think is smart. And it's tempting to just say we're going to accept any and every job that comes our way. Why not? As long as we can make a profit. But as you know, obviously very well, a lot of this industry is really just based on perception and the story that you tell about your company.
Yeah, exactly. You're only as good as your last project, kind of thing. I think that was something that we identified really early. Everyone talks about the sort of power of no. Um, we believed in the power of no, but we were kind of using the answer of maybe, and we were weighing the cost benefit analysis when a project that was sort of under budgeted for us was worth it or not. And you do that as you're building a company, right? You might take something that's that is under resourced in the effort of using it as a real piece, right? And try to leapfrog on that project to do other projects like that. And I think when you do too much of that, you start to get known for whatever that is, right? Like if you're just doing, commercials for higher education, you're going to get known as the person who makes commercials for higher education, right? So
Hmm.
for us, being able to still say yes to projects, but it's a yes and meet this very trusted collaborator of ours. It's a much easier thing to do. And we also really believe in the ability to grow creatively no matter where you're at on the sort of scale of marketing and advertising, right? Like we happen to really focus on this faction, right? Like the sort of commercial budget range, right? But we're inspired all the time by filmmakers that are doing things on a much smaller scale, and there's things that can be learned from each, but you need to have the space to do that. And the more that we can be producing a high caliber of work, and sort of extending the ceiling, right, of what's possible for production companies, rather than having the ceiling cave down on us, budgetarily, is really all we're trying to do, right? The spectrum of budgets and video work should be wide and should be varied, and that's something that we think is really important within the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting seeing the industry. I think, well, companies like yours becoming more niche in the sense that, yeah, you're very targeted on one specific type of thing. And I'm seeing it across other like creative industries as well, like in the design world. Um, there's a guy that is becoming fairly popular on Twitter, but he's kind of starting like micro design agencies only focused on one vertical, right? Like this is a design agency only for restaurants. And then he's got
Yeah.
another one only for one other industry vertical, another one. And so it's like, um, it's just going to be interesting to see where things go and how companies position themselves creatively over time.
I think you're starting to see that a lot in the production world. As production companies become more duplicitous, you're seeing people that just do sports, right, or just do food and beverage. Tabletop has kind of always been a thing, but people are getting even like more niche within tabletop, like only doing these sort of like rigs and contraption stuff, right? Like it's really interesting, and I do feel like the space that used to be dominant, which is that the directors were specialized, and you went to a director for a certain thing. I now see production companies starting to move into that space where production companies can kind of be known for a specific thing, a specific vibe, whatever that is.
And all the directors on their roster fit within that vibe,
Sure.
essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And even, I mean, I've even seen some folks that where the production company literally is the director, right? Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
Canada is one of those, like you see a lot of directed by Canada, where it's this sort of like amorphous thing, like that, there probably is, somebody or maybe a tandem leading it, but it's a collaborative effort. And,
Yeah.
I think thinking about how things get made and being open-minded to how you might approach a project is really important. And again, the more competition, the better. The more that we can be pushing ourselves creatively within competition is going to create better results.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So, got to talk about a controversial topic here. Obviously the industry is changing so much here with generative AI and all these
Yeah.
new technologies. I think about it a lot, so I'm sure that you think about it a lot as well. I'm curious, what your outlook is, where the opportunity is, where the threat is, and just like in general, what do you think the future of the content industry looks like?
Well, I think we have to get rid of that term threat. I think if we continue to see it as a threat, we're never going to, not never, but it's going to be more difficult for us to make forward progress and start to, embrace and utilize these tools for what they are and what they would allow us to do. I was super inspired by this recent Under Armour campaign. I'm making waves
Yeah.
everywhere in our industry right now. Something that was created entirely with AI, and just the visual caliber of that and the aesthetic that they were able to achieve is really phenomenal. And
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, I want to be seeing more of those projects. So I was just in South by Southwest, and you couldn't walk 2 feet without hearing AI. And it's getting into so many different things concurrently, that it's hard to look at one specific thing, such as how is AI going to replace the camera, right? You can't just look at it like that, right? Because the idea is that AI is going to be everywhere, right? It's going to have its place and role in everything we do. But I've been super inspired by a lot of, the filmmakers that have adapted it for their work. And I think that's really where the progress is going to get made is seeing somebody put it to work in a certain way and achieve a certain effect, a certain aesthetic, and seeing the sort of inspiration that the waves of inspiration that causes, and the sort of ladder effect of all the work that can come from just these little individual things. And I guess I'm just more excited about it than anything. And I'm interested. At the same time, it's like I'm a part of the sort of DSLR filmmaker generation, right? And I happened to work at a production company when I first got out of college that had invested a considerable amount of money into tape based cameras. At the time the Panasonic Varicam was the thing, and they had bought 4 of them, and the 5D comes out the next year for $5,000 versus 90, and it changed everything. And everyone, the panic of everyone saying, oh, this is going to change everything, we're going to lose our jobs, the whole production, now anybody with a prosumer camera can make Super Bowl commercials. That didn't happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like we're in a similar place now where just because AI exists doesn't mean that it's easy to use, and doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that it is going to just run on its own. And I think the more that we can yield the tool to our own creative vision, the better off we're going to build this foundation for it as a tool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you had the same thing with the iPhone, right? Like when the iPhone started suddenly having these DSLR quality and even cinema camera qualities, there was this kind of thought like, oh, well, now everyone's going to be able to shoot these commercials or these films or whatever, right? And it's going to put all the professionals out of business. But the truth is if you give, a teenage girl an iPhone, or you give Dustin Devlin an iPhone, yours is just going to naturally look better because you have decades of experience. You have an eye for it. You understand composition, lighting, framing, story, all these different things. And so I continue to believe that the people that have been working in this industry professionally are best positioned and have the biggest opportunity to leverage AI. And I think that that trend is going to continue to be just a immutable law of the universe. That there's always going to be a percentage of people that are just better, more experienced, more creatively talented, no matter what the technology is. So I'm personally optimistic. Obviously, there's some legal issues that need to get figured out with copyrights and things of that nature. But I think we're starting to see what's possible when you give a truly talented director or production company, like we saw in that Under Armour spot. Um, Nobody's going to be able to type that into Midjourney and put that together in Runway, that in their bedroom, right? Like that was a professionally, like beautifully produced piece of work, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that soon.
I agree. And I think like it's important to note, if you look at that piece, the amount of people who worked on it. You think
Yep.
it wasn't just one guy typing prompts into Sora, right? Like
Yeah.
it's production is the ultimate team creative sport. And it still does take an army to make these things, and to the just the amount of different things that production requires. You still absolutely need the support of a creative group working on something. And I think that's what gives me optimism about AI. I don't think, I think it's going to add to, I don't think it's going to necessarily eradicate the team sport nature of what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. And people will still exist, right? You'll still have celebrities. You'll still have real people that you want to capture on camera and, tell their story. So it's, I don't think the camera's going away. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I'm optimistic.
Yeah.
But yeah, controversial topic. I know it's pretty polarizing on the internet right now, but it'll be an interesting year ahead.
It's actually pretty refreshing for me because we got tied up doing a lot of work for robotics early on in our company, and we were sort of tied up in the conversation of, are robots going to, take over and replace us? And not that that has gone away in
which
any way, shape,
which
or
is
form, but
still
AI.
coming.
There's more of a focus on AI, which is a little bit more amorphous than like, is this robotic dog going to kill me?
Yeah, we should maybe be more concerned about the robotic film crews than Sora. Who
Yeah.
knows what'll happen first?
A
Um,
robotic grip is a real scary thought.
yeah, that it is. Speaking of that, would love to, quickly. I know we're getting towards the end of the interview here, but would love to see that spot and
Sure.
maybe have you take us through it. We can link into the show notes for the full spot with the audio and everything, but it was really cool, really well done. I think it was a single take. So maybe if you want to just like pull it up, put it on mute, and maybe just like walk us through a little bit of how that spot was produced.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was, one of the sort of first projects where we really got to exercise ourselves creatively. We weren't just handed a set of boards. This from concept through to delivery, we worked on. So I was a creative director on it. My partner Winston McDonald was the director on it. We also brought in one of our other directors, Jamie Silver, as a creative on it. And it was one of those things where you're put in the pressure cooker of creative, and you gotta come up with an idea and shoot it and deliver it in less than 3 weeks. It was really crazy, but also really fun, and I think built the foundation of who we are as a company. So what you're seeing here is, the famous Spot, the robot dog. Prior to this point, we hadn't really seen Spot do anything than like what the, technicians and robotics folks were doing in the back parking lot of Boston Dynamics, like beating it with hockey sticks and stuff like that. Which actually, I will back up to this homage here. We did find a way to work the hockey stick in, if you can see right there. That's just a little
Nice.
Easter egg for you.
Yeah.
But they knew they wanted to create something that was higher level, higher quality, bigger concept. They came at us with one principle, which is that they didn't want to see any editing. They felt that because this is the first time people have seen the robot do these things, that if we edited, there might be some movie magic that we would be that people could take from it and sort of attack its capabilities, where it actually could do all these amazing things. So we kind of took this approach of kind of like a one take, okay, go style video, sort of like Rube Goldberg machine, but in real human scale. And we also wanted to show the sort of like use cases that Spot could have out in the world, and all the things it could do. So that's where all these little environments come from. The welding shop, the desert, carrying payloads, just out in everyday landscape here. And we also wanted it to bookend, which is what you see here. Where it started is where it ends. So what you're actually seeing is it's not a full circle. We actually built it in a horseshoe, for the camera. Where we had this same set built on the other side, and we had our Steadicam operator basically just follow Spot through the obstacle course. Spot was early in its development. There were still a lot of kinks to be worked out. We didn't end up getting, we got a full take of it without edits, but it was just a bit slow when we started to get into editing, where we really were intending just to kind of do color and sound and music. We did find that by putting in a few stitches, it did help the visibility. So there is a stitch right here. You'll see basically, where you see a wall again going out into the desert world here, we kind of hit a stitch. But so there's really just the two stitches there, and everything else is happening in real time.
Yeah. How many sets was that total?
Uh, oh, let's count them. I think about seven.
Seven
And
sets.
we worked in a giant industrial warehouse, build them, connecting to one another, adjacent to one another.
Nice. And if you remember, how many shots did it take you to get the one shot that I know
I
that didn't end up being the final, but
That was my job. I was sort of like creative director slash like script soupy. But I believe we were somewhere around 20. I think we got to like 20, and then we did 6 more takes, and that was all on a 10-hour day. So we did 26 takes in a 10-hour day. The reset time for everything was pretty significant. We had the rain machine going and everything like that. So that being
yeah,
said, I think 26 takes for this kind of thing, each take, taking somewhere around 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes,
yeah.
that was a feat.
God bless your Steadicam operator.
Shout out Joel. He's a local guy, lives down in Rhode Island. I know he works a lot in New York. He is absolute beast.
Yeah, they have to be. They have to be to put together a day like that.
Yep.
Um, but cool, yeah, really great to have you. Thank you so much for joining. I really enjoyed this and catching up, learning more about Vagrants. And let's stay in touch.
Awesome, Nate. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's really been fun, and keep on doing what you're doing. It is really important for our filmmaker and creative community.
Thank you. Appreciate that.